You are listening to the Sales Journeyman Podcast, the podcast to help sales professionals and entrepreneurs achieve their goals and impact their industry.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are joined to the Sales Journeyman Podcast. I am your host, Robert. Please, if you are watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. And today we are joined by a special guest, Danny King. He is the founder of King & Company Real Estate Group, powered by Keller Williams. He has over 10 years experience in the industry, and he services residential properties in North and South Carolina. Thank you so much for joining me, Danny. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, Robert. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, Danny, kind of the theme of our podcast is talking about journeys in selling. Can you give us a bit about your journey, about how you got started in real estate, or if you did any sales, had any sales experience outside of that? Go ahead, take it from here.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for 10 years. I graduated college and basically started my career from there. So that was in '05. I did not get right into real estate. I did start as a management trainee with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Worked my way up through that, and that is more of an inside sales position. So they kind of throw you right into the fire. So I was there for about 5 years, worked my way up to management, opened one of the branches in the Charlotte area, and then left. That was about the time of when we had the economic downturn from '08 and the recession hit. So made a move into banking from there. I was at Wells Fargo for 5 years, where my official title was inside wholesaler. I really was more of a compliance person for brokers that sold annuities. So I was in the retail retirement division. So I was basically making sure they made their millions legally. So it didn't really fall into a sales role in that middle part, but kind of realized, after a few years at the bank, it was a good group. I wasn't getting promoted. I had gone for a couple of promotions, and I just realized I wasn't really where I wanted to be. I had always wanted to work for myself. I had considered real estate probably 5 years prior to that, right while I was still at Enterprise. And then the cash to get in the game was at that time it was too much to fathom. So I held off. I got into my early 30s. I decided to get my real estate license. And in 2014, started taking the weekend classes while I was still working at the bank. And early 2015, got licensed. And the rest has kind of taken off from there. So it's been quite a ride so far.
No, that's awesome. I think that speaks to a lot of sales professionals' inner desire is the ability to kind of create your own freedom and your own ability to work for yourself. A lot of salespeople inevitably become entrepreneurs, I think, for that very same reason. They really want that freedom. I did notice a couple, it seemed like back like 2 years ago, everyone and their mother got their real estate license. The market was booming a couple years ago. I think it's still going very well so far. Can you talk a little bit about how you have learned to distinguish yourself from the competition, where it feels like the real estate game is so saturated with people hungry for opportunity? How do you as an agency, how do you guys really distinguish yourself from the competition?
Well, I think, for me, getting in when I did in 2015, I'll be honest, I knew nothing about the real estate market. I didn't know what was really happening with pricing, days on market, sales numbers, the stats behind the actual real estate itself. It was, like you said, an entrepreneur mindset that I kind of had the itch for years. So I scratched it, and it just so happened I kind of got into real estate through that because I found value. I knew it was something of value that I could bring to other people's lives. So kind of starting there and understanding Keller Williams does a really good job of training and just teaching people how to be a real estate professional. And they start by asking you, what's your big why? Why do you want to do this? Why is this important to you? And you can line up 10, 20 people, and probably 75 to 90% of them are going to say money. I want to make a ton of money. I want to, and I mean, at the time they probably consider it easy money.
Yeah.
But I think that starting there and understanding that why, and coming from a place of contribution and really wanting to help people because you see value in it, and to be completely honest and transparent, when I look at my time at Wells Fargo, I knew that I was very expendable. Like,
Mm.
they could have moved our group very easily, and that's kind of where they were tracking anyway. My wife is a stay-at-home, like, homebody, North Carolina, born and bred. She wasn't going anywhere. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew that at that I would be expendable. In real estate, you're still expendable, but you kind of create your own market, you create your own journey, you create your own business, and it's up to you whether you want to stay in the game or not.
Mm.
So understanding that getting in really helped me leading up, and then come 2020 when the world shut down, um, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So at that point, I had gained enough experience and training just in my time with Keller Williams, and to the point where I was comfortable bringing other people with me to leverage my time and handle the business that we were getting in volumes, to be able to do that. So the experience, knowing my big why leading up to that, and like you said, seeing the influx of people getting into the industry, really did help set us apart. We had already created a name for ourselves, and a lot of that was just working what we call our sphere of influence.
Mm.
I was born in Charlotte, grew up here, gone to church, the same church my whole life, and a lot of my client base unintentionally came though from just my time at Hickory Grove, being growing up, going to school in Charlotte. So a lot of different sectors of just my network really stepped in because I'm somebody that they could trust, and that's 90% of it. Like, do they like you? Do they trust you? And the other 10% is know how. And I learned how. There was some failure that came along the way, and some learning moments, but we took those and ran it. And I realized probably about 2 or 3 years in, I was like, man, I can do this. Like, this is working. It's no longer the experiment. This is my career. And
Nice.
that was a freeing moment. So, I was able to kind of just run free from there. And when the world shut down, we were in the thick of it. And yes, there were people coming in that, it was an easy time to sell, is easy money. Um, but I think people are realizing now that it's not so easy because
Right.
the market has normalized. We are still seeing high prices. We're still seeing, high rates. We're still seeing movement, and we still have a need for homes. So now, though, it's a skills market instead of just hey, let me just show up and put my shingle in front of you and put a sign in the yard, which worked for about 2 years. Now you got to actually work for your money. So I think leading up to that point in time, we had kind of created that separation for the people who are true professionals that know what they're doing, take pride in what we do, and we're not just chasing a dollar. We're actually trying to help people,
Mm.
from the people that, hey, this is a hobby, or this is easy money. This is something that, is kind of sexy. I can go buy a brand new car, look good, have all the aesthetics of it, but there's no substance to it. So,
Mm.
that's where we have come, and it's still, I mean, we still see struggles. Like, it's one of those things. This is an ever changing industry. It's an ever changing market. People change the way they behave and their tendencies. Generationally, it changes. So we're always learning. We're always growing, and having that learning based mindset
Mm.
really carries forward in how we can adapt to the changing market.
Yeah, I love everything you just said there. You mentioned your why, and that for me kind of touches to my point because in a similar situation as you. I have a family, I have kids. It's
Mhm.
very easy whether you're just trying to provide for your family or whether you're trying to buy that Escalade or you're trying to buy that real estate investment to really chase
Yeah.
money. But when you chase the money, that comes through in your sales calls, that comes through in your presentations. People can really sense from
Yeah.
you that you're just trying to get a dollar for them. But when you change that mindset from I'm trying to get a dollar from you to I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to serve, the entire demeanor, I'll even use the term energy, even though I don't love that term, but that energy of the conversation really does make a shift. So you mentioned service, you mentioned relationships, you mentioned trust, you mentioned skill set, you mentioned having the know-how, because like you said, right, the market was good and now the market's regular, and there's going to come a time when the market is not great. So having those skills are important. What skills would you say is most important for like a new rep to develop, a new rep to develop or to have coming in? What are you looking for when you're recruiting real estate agents? What are some of the attributes that they need to have to be successful in this industry?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, I just looking at when I came in and really being kind of a blank slate, not knowing the particulars of this industry. You need to be able, one, you need to have a sense of urgency, but it
Mm,
needs to be coupled with kind of a steady hand. Like it's one of those things where you're like a duck above water. Your legs are churning really fast underneath to stay up, but everybody sees you on top of the water, calm and collected. So you got to have you don't want to be somebody that's real erratic. So controlling your emotions, being able to talk in the positive to people. So one of the big things we preach around here is don't use the buts, use the ands.
mm,
Don't give a qualifier and then say, but this could happen. Say, and this will happen. And it's just little things like that, just how you talk to people. And then the confidence. And again, having a learning based mindset, being ready to learn and come in and just say, hey, look, and being honest with yourself that you don't know what you don't know.
mm.
And there has to be a level of, and that's anything we do. Like, I think a problem we see is that there's a lot of people come in and they want to be further along than they truly are, and they're not honest with themselves, and they
Mm.
don't own, the things that they may lack at that time, but could build on as they continue on in their career, because that's what this is. Like, is this a part-time job, or is this a summer hobby? And after summer's only going back to school, you're done. You've made a couple $1,000s, you're moving on. Or are you building a career that you are building a business out of? Because that's what this is. You own your own business. And I think just from a basic skill level, if you're coming in brand new, you cannot be afraid to lead generate. I think that is
Mm.
the backbone of any real estate brokerage, any real estate office, any individual real estate agent. Well, Danny, I just moved here. I don't know anybody. Well, get out there and start looking at faces and approach people. You got to, and you start the game slows down as you start doing that. You're building those call muscles, as they like to say
Yeah.
in the sell industry. So if you're calling, or if you're just meeting people face to face, lead generation is the backbone. It's the bricks and mortar to any successful real estate business. So that's going to be the first thing that you got to accept and press forward on doing when you get into this business.
I want to touch on something you said a minute ago. I definitely want to talk about lead generation here in a minute because
Sure.
I'm very into that field. But you mentioned about coming in kind of with a blank slate. I think that when some people work a regular job, right, and they go into sales, when you get hired for a job, you want to make sure your boss and everyone around you knows that you know what you're talking about. So you kind of do
Right.
come in with a little bit of bravado to prop yourself
Yeah.
up, even though you don't know what you're doing, but you still can't let your
Yeah.
managers know that. When you come to sales, it's
Yeah.
totally different. Nobody cares about, nobody expects anything from a new rep. They don't expect anything from you except for you to work hard. So you don't have to
Yeah.
feel like if you're listening to this and you're thinking of getting into sales and you're listening to this podcast and you're working a job, it's a different environment, right? Especially commission only. Commission only, if you go to a salary based job, maybe there's some of that there. But if you're getting into commission only job, they just want you to learn. They just want you to work your butt off and lead generate. So I think that's a
Yeah.
really great insight you just gave there. Let's talk though about lead generation.
Sure.
For a real estate entrepreneur like yourself, is I'll preface this with this. We're obviously a sales training podcast, right?
Um,
A lot of the sales training ethos right now is really working your soft skills. Everyone's trying to turn everyone into some version of the Wolf of Wall Street where you can just
Yeah.
speak your way out of any situation. But I wonder if that's always the most important thing. Do you think marketing for a real estate agent is more important than your selling ability, your ability to be a wise talker? Like which is really going to be the better bang for your buck if you're a new agent? Like investing in the marketing or investing in some sales training to learn your skills? How does that? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think, and that's a great question. So, yeah, I think they're both important, and obviously you're going to market yourself. So, what we see time and time again, the focus ends up being on marketing when it really needs to be on, the sales skill or the prospecting side of
Mm,
it. So your prospecting is you going to get the business. And in the market we're in today, it's essential. I'd say it's an 85-15. Marketing is just letting people, it's just putting your brand out there. It's letting people know you're there. It's letting them know how to find you, and then you're waiting for them to come to you. But most successful, at least in real estate, and I would probably venture to say most sales professionals, they are going to be the ones, the most successful ones from a financial standpoint and just from satisfaction in their work, are the ones that are prospecting and seeking out the business and making the contacts, be it cold calling, be it, reaching out to a sphere of influence, being reaching out to past clients, making sure that, hey, you're just continuing to stay in front of them and in front of mind. Drip campaigns. I mean, I think we are a market that is oversaturated with drip campaigns and things like that, especially in real estate. I mean, and with 10,000 realtors in the Charlotte region, a drip campaign is a dime a dozen. It's white noise. So the prospecting side and really being in front of people in one way or another and making that actual live contact, which is really tough for a lot of, especially people getting into the business new and if they're younger. And I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but the young 20s, mid 20s, they're the text generation. And it's sometimes you got to pick up the phone and call, or
mm,
you got to set up a coffee and see them in person. Or just it can be as simple as if you're already talking to a lot of people in real estate, 9 times out of 10, the conversation is going to lead to real estate anyway. Just be prepared to have that talk. And again, you're building rapport, you're building trust, but the prospecting side is going to outweigh the marketing that you do. I think marketing supplements and helps you to grow, but prospecting, it solidifies your place in gaining market share with, in your region or wherever your territory is,
mm.
because that's where how people get to know you and build that trust.
I'm 1,010% in agreement with you because especially when you're new or even when you're a veteran, but especially if you're new, all you have is prospecting. You're never going
Yep.
to learn the necessary skills to close a deal unless you're talking to, you know, hundreds of people a week. My career has been in inside sales my whole sales career. Like inside sales is like what I do. And that's why I love inside sales because the ability to just get on a cold call and just put yourself out there and build that momentum in your favor.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, and I don't know, no one's done the statistics on this, so don't quote me to death. But out of 100 prospects, 10% are always going to buy, 10% are always going to say no, and it's at 80% in between where you do the real selling. But if
Yeah.
you're new and you're prospecting, that means that if you talk to 1,000 people, you might be talking to 100 buyers. So how quickly can you talk to those 1,000 people? I think that's really important, and I think that's missing today. I think a lot of young people, like you said, are very very hungry, very driven, but they do
Yeah.
over. I think complicate it with I need to be the best marketer and I need to make these Instagram reels and all that stuff can help, but getting on the phone and having those conversations, I do agree that is super vital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They work together, right? Like it's not something that, one is terribly exclusive from the other. But yeah, one, I think the marketing side of it is the fun part, right?
yeah,
Like, because a lot of it can be free with the social media advancements and everything we have just at our fingertips. If you have a smartphone, you can market yourself in anything you do and do it for free. So, there's a low overhead cost. It's the follow up. Like if you're getting those followers, you're getting those likes, getting those things, how do you follow up with those people to actually, do the tie downs and sell what you need to sell to them, and get them to be your client instead of someone else? Because again, in my industry, you can throw a rock out the door and you're going to hit maybe two or three realtors, most likely. So I
Yeah.
want to be that difference maker. Yeah.
And I love that you brought up follow up. Follow up is where I think the sale gets made. I can think of so many times in my career where I've had to call people 40 times, and I'm not exaggerating, like literally 40 times throughout the course of a couple months before I could even set an appointment with them. And I shared this post on LinkedIn, a little blog post, but I was recently looking to get some junk removed from my house. I just didn't feel like doing it. And I remember I called this person and they gave me a good price. And I asked them, "Oh, can I add some stuff? Can you upsell me?" So I wanted them to take away the trash, and they never got back to me. And I ended up using someone else. And what I realized in that moment was not only did that company lose my business, they lost all the business I would do in the future. They lost all the referrals I could have given them. So when you don't follow up because maybe you're having an off day, or maybe you don't feel like it, or maybe you don't feel like the opportunity is there, you're missing out on thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of potential dollars. So I love that you brought that up. I didn't even think to bring that up here, but that's a great
Uh,
point. Um,
you have to have it. It's your meat and potatoes, man. And you just, I had a manager when I worked at a restaurant in college. My manager, and it sticks with me to this day. This is over 25 years ago. This guy just said, "You fight how you train." He was a
mm,
military guy. He's like, "You fight how you train." And like you said, I love what you said. He's like, if you're not following up, if you don't feel like it that day, well, that's where the discipline comes in. The discipline is there for discipline is doing the things you don't feel like doing, but
mm.
it's to an end to make yourself, to be successful. And that is that. And it can be a fine line. It can be a real small difference, but that small difference makes all the difference. And I
Mm.
think it's important. So that's a good word.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit on discipline. I mean, I think when you start a business, sometimes it's hard. It's not even necessarily you're being lazy or not feeling it. Sometimes people just don't know how to structure their day. Like you sit there and you're like, okay, I have this business. What do I need to do? Because especially if you come from an employment background, you have a manager who gives you kind of what to do, and now you're venturing into your own business, and you probably leaned on that manager a little bit too much to give you a routine. So I'd like to kind of maybe what is your routine in a day? How do you stay disciplined? How do you structure your day to make the most out of the day, and then balancing time with the business, time with family, time to do cool podcasts like this. How would you educate some reps on to get the most out of their day?
Yeah. No, man, and just to be completely honest, that this is probably something that even in this part of my career, I struggle with
Mm,
probably the most, because, their life changes. I mean, you've got kids, I've got three kids. And they're constantly growing. There's always something going on. Life happens. And, just the simplest things that you try to do can get interrupted. So I think with having that understanding, and again, you kind of track it all the way back to your big why. Like my big why
mm,
was, I want to provide for my wife and my three children, and I want to do that in a way that is abundant. So that's getting in and while bringing value to other people. But yeah, my family is my push. So, the part that I had to come to terms with early on is, okay, I want time with my kids. I want time because I know that time is fleeting. I know that time is going away, but I have a responsibility to them as well. So I have to be prepared to be able to walk away from that time with them at times, because work calls. And our industry is, you have to be flexible. Now, as I've gotten into my business, I've been able to kind of put a fence around that and create some structure. And being a and it's funny because getting into this, and I will get to the question on discipline, because this is where it's led me. But I came into this really not wanting the structure. I don't, hey, I'm gonna work for myself. I can do whatever I want, and you can, but there's consequences to every action. So I've gotten to realize like I need structure. Structure, but you just have to create that structure. Like you said, you don't have a manager that's setting that up for you. So, I have to, now that I'm accountable to team members as well, I have people on my team that they're waiting on me to kind of pave that way for them. So I have to create that structure for myself to balance my time out and then to give them directives to make sure that they're on task and doing what I need them to do. We're leveraging our time, we're leveraging our resources, and then juggle at time. We'll have multiple clients at one time that are constantly in need of attention, and we're kind of at the mercy of their time. So for me, it really comes down to, all right, there's certain non-negotiables in my life, and I'll identify those first, because when I set these pillars, my three pillars are God, family, then business. So God, I'm a Christian. That's who I worship the Lord. So when we worship on Sundays, that's a non-negotiable time frame. And I make sure that I'm clear on that. So that time's blocked off, and time blocking becomes a big thing throughout the week here. So that's the start. So that Sunday's my first day. And then after that, we usually go to lunch. So I'm with my family. So if I do need to like show a house or do something like that, it'll never be before 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. But I do make it pretty clear that my preference is not to work on Sundays if it can be helped. But I leave some flexibility there. From there on Sundays too. So when we're getting into Monday through Saturday, from there, I'm setting up my calendar. So time blocking on my calendar. So an average, normal day is, or at least my target is, wake up by 5, get some coffee, do a devotion, check emails, then get ready, head to the office and I'm trying to get to the office by 7 or 8 o'clock, unless I'm working from home. So, I have that kind of flexibility, but knowing what task I'm about to do, by 9 o'clock, I'm starting to lead generate. And to lead generate, my lead generate time is, my prescribed time is about 9 to 11. So I'm working on deadlines. And what I've started doing recently is, hey, it's a hard deadline. So if I'm lead genning from 9 to 11, like, I finish the call. If it's 11:01, I'm done. I'm not doing anything else. And what that has forced me to do is force that time into the time block, come back and do it right the next day if I missed something the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So I protect, so that time stays protected. And then from 11 on, I'm setting appointments, having meetings like this. This is awesome, by the way. And then, doing, just setting listing appointments, setting up showings, doing those things. If my daughter plays soccer for her school, so I'll make sure that, hey, I know when the soccer games are during the week, so I can make those. And I realized, so structuring that time, even though I didn't like the structure before, it's created the freedom that I desired from the structure. So structure breeded freedom in this. It's crazy how it works. And it took me years to really get it, especially now that my kids are older and they've got lives of their own and we're just trying to keep up, So like that, so keep it. If I stay within that structure, those pillars, and that's how I live my life. And listen, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I deviate. I find myself worrying and having some anxiety around, hey, are we gonna close on time? Are we gonna make this money? Are we gonna do this? Those things are variables that play into this. But if I can always reel it back to that structure and those pillars, then I find that I'm consistently growing, and I'm continuing to get better at what I'm doing by creating that structure and keeping it. And it's a simple concept, but it's not easy.
No.
So that's the big thing, and it's doing the mundane, and it's like sticking to the mundane and the boring that make you that different, that next level agent.
Yeah, I love everything you said about structure. And you mentioned structure equals free. I'm sure, I don't know if you're familiar with Jocko Willink. He was a Navy SEAL, business owner, very popular guy. He has a book and he has a saying. The book is based on his popular saying, discipline equals freedom. And it's amazing how true that is, because, I have a miniature angry, probably sinful reaction when I see these Instagram ads of, if you do this, whatever field it is, you'll have passive income. And it's a guy on a floaty on a beach somewhere. And that's just not how it works. Like first of all, if you're under the age of 50 and you're talking about passive income, I have a problem with that personally as a young man. Like, why are we trying to have passive income at 20 years old? Let's get some work done. But also, it takes that work, it takes that structure, it takes that time, it takes self-management to be successful. Whether you're in sales or an entrepreneur, right? Because if you're a sales rep and you're working for a company, you're like a little mini entrepreneur in that business. And so you still need to structure your day like an entrepreneur. And the ones who do that and the ones who own their book of business and operate in that way, I have seen have the most success. And the people who come in and are lackadaisical never have success. But you both have freedom, but your freedom is going to destroy you and kick you out of the industry ultimately. And my level of structure that gives me freedom is going to give me the thing that sets me apart, sets my company apart, sets us apart. So I love everything you said there. I also
100%.
like that you put other things in front of the business, right? God being first, right? Family being second, and then work being third. And I'm a Christian as well, so that's a structure that I try to hold. But I tend to struggle myself with really keeping that structure, because it's so tempting to put work above everything else. It's so tempting to say, my job is how I provide for my family. So I'm honoring God if I neglect my family for this period of time because, I'm providing. So talk a little bit about that to someone who's maybe in my own shoes. Tell me a little bit about how do you feel confident that you've done enough for the day, you've done what you need to do, go home, go be with your family, and how do you have that peace when you're working?
Yeah. So that is probably next to the structure. That's probably the other thing that I've had a hard time kind of reconciling and working that deadline system. So there'll be days where I am at home, but I am not present because I have felt like that I didn't do enough that day. I could have done more. I could have done this, and that's something that I don't know. I don't know if it's a little bit of ADD or just stuff that, I was trying to look back, it's like, what did I do today? So I try to struggle instead of just like, okay, well, I can't do anything now. So this is, this is where my feet are. This is where I need to be. And especially if that's in front of my wife and kids, I just need to shut it down, know that, hey, Lord willing, I've got another day tomorrow. I will make sure that I'm more productive in that block of time. But yeah, that's not been an easy thing for me to do and feel when I come home and feel like I've accomplished a good day's work, because I think in my mind, especially when you're full commission, there's always something you can be doing. There's always something else. There's always one more call to make, or there's always, one more number to run, or something that you can do to build that commission pipeline that you do when you're in sales. So I think getting to the point, and I like to say the game has slowed down enough for me to realize really coming back to what's most important. And when you get back to that system of God, family, then business, and you can evaluate, am I really putting God and family before my business? But when it comes time to do the business, because we are being a steward of the gift that we've been given, and that conversation with my wife first and foremost, before I even got into real estate, she had to be on board with what I was doing, because I did know that, hey, this is going to take me away from home at different times. It's not always going to be the exact same time every day. We're going to have to be flexible, especially at first year. So to get her on board with that, that was huge, so that she can advocate for me to my children, knowing, hey, this is what dad has to do. I know we want him here. Obviously, we want to spend all the time, but if he's here, he's not working, he's not providing. And, my wife, she stays at home, She's been a homemaker. She raises our children, which I'm very thankful for. But I want, as a dad, you want to be with your kids. Like you want, this is what I'm doing it for, and I want to enjoy that time. So, this having that understanding for them. And the one thing that's like this, I've learned the hard way, um, not taking it into my house.
Hmm.
So like when I'm when I'm on a call, I've made a practice of, all right, I'm staying out in the car at least, and then in my driveway until I'm off this call. Because I will inevitably get the text, "What are you doing? Why are you just sitting in the driveway? Why are you?" So keeping it separate, because for a long time the overlap was okay because it was new, but then I started realizing like there has to be a delineation between my family and my work. And like if my kids ever want to get into this business, great. I feel like I'm creating something that they can be a part of if they want to. But right now, that's not where they are. So I need to keep things separate so that we can truly enjoy our time together, even if it's minimal time, but it needs to count.
Hmm.
So, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on kind of rabbit trail with,
No, that was
the
great.
family stuff, but that's where I feel like, that pushes me. That's my motivation to make sure that in the time that I'm in my office, in between these four walls, away from my house, because even working from home is a struggle. I wanted it for so long, but now it's like, this is too hard, especially during summertime because everybody's there and it's too much. So coming away, being away, and focusing on the work, leaving my work at work, and then bringing and being at home when I'm at home. That separation has really helped me to push myself to get the things I need to get done during the day.
And I think you also touched on something important. Your wife needs to be involved, right? I think there's a
Yeah,
temptation for guys in our state that have stay-at-home wives that are taking care of the family, that's like their job and it's separate from our job. But I think because you've made an attempt to structure your life this way, it's probably easier to get your wife bought into your mission because there's likely less. I'm not saying no one's perfect, right? There's likely going to be less
sure.
jealousy of the business. So I think what you said there makes a lot of sense. We are kind of coming to close to the end. I do want to ask you real quickly, for those who are in a situation, maybe the young first time home buyers, if you can answer this somewhat quick, that feel like right now the market is too expensive, everything is too expensive, can't buy a house. Give us like a 1-2 minute pitch as to why people should buy a house now, and why it is affordable and their options. I know that's a lot to fit in 2 minutes,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, so if you're a first time home buyer looking to get market, but you're scared because all you hear are rates are too high, prices are too high, my answer to that is yeah. But rates will change. There are programs in place that you can even have the rate bought down. Right now, in the market of today, the market of the moment, you have more negotiating power as a buyer than any buyer has had in North and South Carolina in the last 5 years.
hmm.
Homes are sitting longer on the market, so sellers are getting more motivated. As the rates stay a little bit higher, which I can tell you they're probably going to hover in that 6 to 6.5%, and with a little bit of fluctuation throughout this year. Sellers are going to get motivated. Prices will relax some. However, the value trend is still up. So what you want to do is when you get in touch with a realtor who's going to get you, if they're worth their salt, they're going to get you in touch with a good lender. We're going to talk about how we can make that rate, those seemingly high rates and high prices work best for you, because there are things in place that can help you just relax some of that pressure on paying such a high mortgage, especially as a first time home buyer, because it's scary.
Hmm.
And we understand that. And a lot of sellers probably are holding pat because they got good rates during COVID. They're at that 3%. So they don't want to double. But when you have to move, it is going to always be better than renting. So if your options are buy or rent, then I'm always going to say buy, because you're still investing your money when you buy. And then when the rates will change, there will be the opportunity to refinance. So we can always have that conversation. And part of what we do is make sure that you have that knowledge right away. So when it comes time to be able to refinance and get a lower rate, take a little bit of pressure off your mortgage payment, then go for it. But right now, the negotiating power is the big hook, because if rates did drop, then you're going to see another iteration of what we saw during COVID, where everybody's in the market trying to get in on the lowest rate that they've seen in 2 or 3 years. And then you're going to be competing, and you're going to lose all your cash that you're trying to put in, because you're going to have to give so much more on the front end. So you date the rate, you marry the house.
Awesome.
So.
Great. Thank you so much, Danny, for joining us. Tell the people where they can connect with you if they want to work with you as a real estate, if they want to work for your agency, if they're maybe looking to buy and they like what you said. How can people get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, first, you can always call my cell. Can I put my cell phone number on here?
Let's not do that, because we
Okay,
don't know
don't
who's
do that.
gonna-
Okay.
This might go to other
I
people.
got you,
I don't
yeah.
want you to get texts from random people, but give your email.
Copy that. Yeah, Danny at kingandcorealestate.com. Or we got our website, kingandcorealestate.com, and we've got King and Co Real Estate on Instagram and Facebook. So you can follow us, like us. My name's Danny King. I'm the founder and leader of King and Company Real Estate Group. We're always here to answer questions, and we want to educate our clients more than just making money off of them, because we want to be your realtor for life.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Until next time, keep selling.